Hey everyone, it's Denise Brown from the Caregiving Years Training Academy and caringourway.com. We're going to talk about how you can use your lived experience as a family caregiver as material for your book. And I'm grateful to have some join me live this morning. We're on a Saturday morning, so it's nice to see those of you who could join. Okay, let's start. You are welcome to post introductions in the chat room too, for those of you who've joined us live, and let me know what do you hope to get out of our time together today. That would be great. Good morning, Gloria. I got your LinkedIn message and I forgot to write you back, but thank you for being here today, Gloria. It's good to see you. Okay, so I'm just going to share with you how I figured out a process to write books. And the different books that I've written have included journals, how-tos, and almost like prose. And there are sets of books that I've written. So for instance, the prose is a set of 5 books called Caregiving Comforts. And I first published the first book in that series in 2008, and people still buy it. And that's what I want you to really take away today is we're looking at how do you write something that sustains itself over time. Okay, and then we're going to talk about a program that I'm launching that will help you write your book. Just a little bit about me. I started supporting family caregivers in 1990. And I helped my dad for just about 20 years and my mom for 8 of those years. So for about 8 years, I was caring for both my parents. And I started writing what I call Caregiving Comforts in 2003. And I continue to write them. So I've been writing them. Oh my gosh, now that I think about it, let's do the math for 23 years. Wow. And they have created this 5-book series. The 6th book will probably be published in 2027. And then I also write what I call Sunday questions. I believe that a good question in our head helps us find a good solution because our mind works on finding the answer for us. So I do that every Sunday. And then I've written other books that are around how to manage a caregiving experience, how to manage after caregiving ends. And the reason that I figured out to publish books is because when I started writing these Caregiving Comforts in 2003, I thought, but what do I do with this weekly content? And I thought, I'm going to publish a book. And at that time, self-publishing was brand new. So I was using a way to publish that was new, that hadn't been available before. You didn't have to look for a publisher. You could use self-publishing tools that were available on the internet. I thought, this is awesome. I'm going to do that. And you already have content for a book. It's just thinking about how to pull that content into a book. And something that I think is really important to acknowledge for all of you who have been or are family caregivers is you committed to showing up during your caregiving experience, which is why you have what it takes to write a book. You know commitment. Writing a book takes commitment. I think that is one of the most important skills to have for writing a book, commitment. Just a couple stories for you about how my books have made an impact, because that's what you're looking for in writing a book, is to impact your reader. And if you have impacted one reader, your book is successful. So I have a book called Healing Words, which is around supporting a family caregiver with what wears them out. And a library uses that for their book club. So the book is organized around 12 chapters to help family caregivers heal from 12 different wearinesses, caregiving fatigues. So it helps them when they are tired, for instance. And then there's a strategy within each chapter that they apply for each caregiving fatigue. The 5-book series that I'd mentioned to you is used by a program in Canada. And I know this because every once in a while, I will coach a family caregiver who's based in Canada. He has a lot of support and he likes to connect with me every 6 weeks or so just to check in. And during one of our last coaching sessions, he said to me, I have a coach in Canada through a Canadian organization. And during one of our coaching sessions, I expressed a feeling that I was having, and the coach took out your book and read a passage from your book to me. And my client said to his coach, I know her. She coaches me too. I was like, oh my gosh, wow. And then the book that I wrote for former family caregivers, How to Adjust After Caregiving Ends, was recommended in Asking Eric, which is the advice columnist. He's syndicated. He replaced Dear Amy, if you read Dear Amy, who replaced Dear Anne. Dear Abby, I can't remember which of the two sisters Amy replaced. So Asking Eric recommended my book in one of his advice columns. I just want to give you one other success story that hasn't turned into a book, but it's how a book can be inspired. So in a conversation with a family caregiver about a blog post I wrote, she shared something with me about uncertainty during caregiving that I thought that is profound. I turned it into a workshop to see what does it sound like. The workshop was really well received. And so now I know I have a book to help family caregivers through uncertainty. It's just interesting to see how a book and its inspiration comes about. And it's also helpful to know that when you publish a book, you open up doors for yourself through speaking engagements. Organizations like to hire authors. So my books have opened up speaking engagements for me, and they will for you too. You could think about a different type of genre for your book, like a memoir. You want to write about what you've experienced. You want to write a guide. It could be a book of poetry. So I think of my caregiving comforts as a book of prose. I hadn't thought about it as poetry until my nephew, who was probably 8 at the time, so almost 20 years ago, looked at my book and said, Aunt Denise, this is poetry. I was like, oh my gosh. And then I use Claude as my AI tool. He is my writing partner and my editor, and he will talk about my work as being prose, which is really so like, wow, that's awesome. And then it also could be something that becomes like a journal where you offer journal prompts. So I have done a combination of these different genres. So it's important to also know that you don't have to pick one and focus on it. You can do all four, for instance. You could do all three. So my book about After Caregiving Ends includes my own experiences weaved in. It's not just about my experiences. I interviewed former family caregivers, but I wove in my experience as well. So you could look at it as a bit of a memoir. It's a guide because it gives you 6 steps to focus on. And then it also is a journal. There's a reflection piece that's the second part of the book, which is former family caregivers reflecting on a moment in time and what that moment in time is like for them after caregiving ends. So I have former family caregivers share what 2 weeks after their Carrie's death is like, 2 months. 2 years. And I think the longest might be 4 years. Just gives the reader a way to say to themselves, I'm not behind because I've read what others are, where others are on their timeline. I'm okay. So, a couple questions for you to think about which of those genres really speaks to you. So, is it a personal journal that you want, your personal journey you want to share? Do you want to educate? Do you want to have a creative outlet? Is it a book that creates engagement with your readers? And I think it's important to really look at family caregivers and former family caregivers as a different type of reader. They might not have time to go through an entire book, but if you have simple chapters or simple pages that they read one at a time, it might feel better. Bite-sized content might work better with a family caregiver. So you could think about that when you structure your book. And I also think it's helpful for us to just take a moment and step back a little bit and ask, what's the book you wanted during your caregiving experience? And you can think about that from the perspective of content. What's the content you wanted to read? What was the time commitment to read it? So, for instance, those caregiving comfort books, you could read a comfort in 5 minutes. Each book includes about 110 comforts, but each comfort will take you about 5 minutes. So, readers of that book have told me that they'll read a comfort a day and then journal about it. That book is also a podcast. So I now read those caregiving comforts and release a new podcast episode every Monday. And I just gained a new listener to those caregiving comforts because she used it. This is how she described it to me. She used it as her own personal therapy to work through her feelings. And then it helped her understand why she was feeling as she was feeling. So you can see how a book can take other forms, like a workshop, a keynote, a podcast. Okay, I like to go to the end. I am the kind of reader that will read the first chapter or as much as I need to read to get the lay of the land and understand the characters. And then I like to read the end of the book so I know what happens. And then I have decreased my uncertainty as I read the book. I don't like to be in uncertainty. So I enjoy the book when I know what's going to happen. And we can use that same technique to think about the end of the book for the reader. When your reader finishes the book, how do they feel? Let's write 6-word stories about it. So, in 6 words, how does your reader feel when they've completed your book? Here are some examples. So, a reader might feel, I can keep going. I feel relieved and renewed. I feel encouraged, empowered, and supported. So, those of you who are joining live, feel free to share your 6-word stories. You can put it in the chat or you can unmute and share it. Oh, I don't know if anybody's ready to share yet. Okay. Okay, so Corey is sharing her 6-word story. Heard, like I wasn't crazy or alone. Oh, wow, that's powerful. So at the end of your book, Corey, your reader says to themselves, I feel so heard, and I know I wasn't crazy or alone. Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. The reason it's helpful to think about the end is it helps you stay on purpose when you start. And it becomes then a check-in point for you as you're writing. You've written a chapter, and you can ask yourself, how does this chapter contribute to the end goal? That the reader feels whatever you want them to feel. Something too that I think is helpful to know when you're writing a memoir is vulnerability and authenticity matters in a memoir. And you could check in to see, how ready am I to be vulnerable in my memoir? And if you think, you know what, I'm not necessarily ready to be that vulnerable, so I don't think memoir is the category that I want to write in. But that doesn't mean that you stop writing your book. It just means that you think about, what does this look like in a different category? So if I use my difficult days as inspiration for journal prompts, maybe what I'm ready to write is a book for journaling. I don't have to be vulnerable, but I connect to my vulnerability and use that as inspiration for my journal prompts. Something that readers told me about my Caregiving Comforts book that I keep in mind is that they would say to me, so much of what I read out in the world about caregiving is about the writer. And the readers would say, what we like about what you're writing is it's about us. So if you can think of a way to transform what you're writing, so it's not just about you, it's about us, it can be really helpful. You spoke to that, Corey, in your 6-word story. So what's so interesting is we thought about how your book begins by thinking about how it ends. So you have a purpose to your book. And that's a great start. What you are doing when you have a purpose by thinking clearly how your reader feels at the end is that you are on point then throughout the book. You have a reason why you're writing this book because, in essence, your book solves a problem for the reader. You can take how they feel at the end and then think about how they feel at your beginning, and then take them through that journey of transforming how they feel when they start your book to how they feel when they end your book. Keeping in mind that you have a specific type of reader, a family caregiver who's tight on time, stressed, and overwhelmed. So how does your book give to them rather than take from them? If your book is a complicated experience, it might take from them. I just want to share one other experience I had with one of my books. It's a how-to, and in one of the sections I write that you can have a love letter to your caree to use on a day when you are just like out of love and you worry about what you will say because you have no love left in you. That is what the caregiving experience has done for you. It has just drained you. So instead of worrying about, I'm going to say the wrong thing, you have a love letter ready to give to your caree. And that's your love substitute for a day where you feel out of love. And one of the readers of that book came to my website and posted a love letter to me. So it's interesting to think about the feeling a reader has. And so you can think about a family caregiver feeling unloved. And at the end of the book, they feel loved. Yeah, go ahead, Corey. Go ahead and unmute and ask or share.
So a minute ago, you said think about what you are giving to the reader versus taking.
Yes.
So can you explain that a little bit more, please?
Yes. So it's this idea that you are giving them time to reflect, to feel comforted, to feel loved. If your book is too complicated, too much about something they can't relate to, you are taking away from their day. So a reader, a family caregiver is investing time in your book. How does that time give back to them rather than waste time for them? How does that sound to you, Corey?
Well, that's interesting because I get caught up between being the lay caregiver versus the occupational therapist caregiver, and my struggle between walking that bridge or that line between the two because I would get very frustrated with my colleagues who were working with my husband, and I saw that he needed additional to what they were doing, and essentially I call it stopping at the toilet. Like, we're allowed ADL, activities of daily living. The minute you can get on and off the toilet, they discharge you. It's like you're fine, but you're not fine because you're not doing other activities that you really need to be doing, but the insurance company will only say, well, okay, you can get in and out of bed, in and out of the car, on and off the toilet. Your caregiver can get you dressed and feed you. You're
So,
done.
but yeah, bottom line, me, Corey, how does that show up then in a challenge for you writing?
In the writing groups that I've been in, what they say to me is, that's too clinical. Be more emotional. Uh,
Okay, so then it's really your decision as an author.
you know,
What's the book I'm writing?
well, I was almost thinking I probably need to write two, one for
There
the
you
care,
go.
one for the caregivers as lay people, and one for my colleagues that says essentially get off the toilet.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that is you could have a framework that works for both readers.
Mm.
It just shows up differently for the family caregiver and
Uh-huh.
shows up a different way for the occupational therapist.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. The same framework and meaning two different books, but the same framework?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's how to talk to your occupational therapist.
Hmm.
Occupational therapist, here's how to improve your family caregiving, the experience with family caregivers.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you about a program that I'm launching. And I'm launching this program actually because someone asked me to launch it. And I thought, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. So it's an 8-week program where you create content every week. So the process that I've shared with you is that I wrote every week a caregiving comfort, and then I turned it into a book. You're going to write every week as well. You're going to figure out what's the right publishing schedule for you weekly. If you publish, for instance, 4 blog posts a week, in 8 weeks, you have 32 pieces of content. And you could think about how to expand that into a book. So you'll post on our community, Caring Our Way. You can also post on a Substack that you start, your own website, anywhere else that you can think of that there's engagement. But we'll start with Caring Our Way. And what's helpful is then in this cohort, you have readers, and in our community, you have readers. I'll share tutorials with you every week that are archived. So you don't have to join a live virtual meeting with me to learn what to do. We will have live chats so you can connect with each other, talk out a concern, ask me questions. So each week, a tutorial is released that you watch when you have a time, and then you can join our live chats to talk about that material, to connect with each other. You also can use the chat room at any time. It's always open. So if you have a question to the cohort, you can post in the chat room. So over 8 weeks, I'll release 8 lessons. You decide your publishing schedule. You let us know how much accountability you want from us. And then you turn what you've been publishing into your book. But what I like about this is when you post a blog post, when you publish a blog post, you have readers who will give you more insights about that content. You also are creating your audience for your book. So that's what I did when I created my Caregiving Comforts. I published every week. I got feedback every week on what I published. And then I also had engaged readers who bought the book. And then, because I'm teaching you this practice, you have a writing practice you can use over and over and over. So I learned how to do this with my Caregiving Comforts. And then I applied that same strategy into my Sunday questions. And I have 3 Sunday question journals published already. So here's who this program is for. You want to write this. You want to be a published author. If you want someone to write your book for you, this would not be the program for you. You'll do the work, and you'll do the work with support from a community, your cohort, and within a community, Caring Our Way. If you want more support after our 8 weeks, you can receive more support about formatting your book. So basically the practical part of publishing your book, creating a plan to launch your book, and then marketing your book. If you are someone who really wants to be able to say that you have a #1 bestseller on Amazon, this would not be the program for you, because I don't do that. There are programs that will do that for you. I don't do that. And again, I go back to what I shared at the very beginning. I don't want you to have a one-hit wonder, meaning for 24 hours, people are talking about your book because you have figured out how to use the system to generate a #1 bestseller. I want you to write a book that is sustainable over years because it speaks so clearly to a family caregiver. That's the program that I'm launching. So again, I think if you want to be a #1 Amazon bestseller, there are other programs for you to look at. And I think that would be great that you know that. And it's great that there are programs out there that will do that for you. This isn't the right program for you. Okay, so you have 8 weeks to write your book if you want optional support around marketing and your launch plan. Then you can buy in the optional program. So let me tell you what the cost is. So for the 8-week program, it's $500. You can pay it in full or in 2 payments. If you want the 8-week program plus the additional support after for actually formatting and publishing your book and marketing support, it's another $500. And in the complete package, you can pay it off in 3 payments. And I forgot to change the date of the cohort. We actually start in May. So closing is May 3rd, and then we start that first Monday in May. I have a little bit of travel in April, and I thought, let's just make it easier on everyone. So we start in May. And you guys stayed with me. So this is awesome. So you get a coupon code. So you can use book to save 20% because you stayed with me for this workshop. Thank you for staying with me. And then here's the enrollment link, which I changed. And then, of course, it went back to blue. So it's careyersacademy.com/author. I can put that in the chat room for those who are joining me live. I'll make sure to have that in the chat room before we close for today. And for those of you who are watching the archive, it's going to be in the show notes. So you want to enroll by May 3rd. And then we'll start right away, first week in May. So if you think about it, your 8-week program runs from May through June. I love this schedule because then you finalize everything July, August. Guess what? You release your book in September. That's a awesome publishing schedule. That is really awesome. You're getting people before the holidays and you're getting people as they move into the winter months when there's a little more time to read, or it feels like, I want to be cozy in my house. I'd love a good book to read. Okay, so before we close, what additional questions do you have for me?
I had a question, Denise.
Yes.
I have a number of blog posts on my website, and I was looking into creating a book out of that, and I had somebody, an editor, review what I had written so far, and the comments were that the length of the blog wasn't consistent. The organization, some had bullet points, some were text and all that. And I got discouraged from continuing. So, what are your thoughts? I was going to go back and see it, because when I wrote them, I mean, they could be updated. They might need changing, but where do I go from here, do you think?
Okay, so what we're talking about is massaging. You're just going to massage your content. And how great is that? One of the things that we'll talk about in the 8-week program is how do you use blog posts to start your content creation, but then you also want a system so that you're saving your blog posts so you don't have to go back and then copy and paste them. So you're doing the same thing at the same time. So you're writing your blog post, but you're also copying it into a Word document. So you're starting your tally, you're running tally of your book. And what's what actually is really interesting is because you have it, you could ask an AI tool
Ah.
to help you massage it.
Okay, that would be fun.
Yeah, it's not about being discouraged. It's about
Mm.
elevating it to the next level. You have the bones. Now you're just going to add in, what should we say, the gravy, right? And you don't have to do a lot of extra work because you can use AI to help you with it.
Thank you. Good answer.
You're welcome. And we'll talk about how to use AI in our 8-week program because I use AI as a writing partner, as an editor. It's been phenomenal. I should also say there's one other piece of content that I actually publish 5 days a week, and that's my good morning message.
Hmm.
So I started writing these good morning messages in 2009, 2010, and there's now maybe 4 journals of good morning messages. And I actually use AI so much for my writing that I ask Claude for feedback on my good morning messages, which are literally 2 or 3 sentences, which you would think, wow, you need that much help. But I find it helpful just to run it by Claude. And what's great about it is Claude will say, boy, he was really giving me a hard time this past week. He's like, your sentences are tangled. Your sentences are tangled. I was like, my sentences are tangled. So I untangled them and my content is better. He's not writing these for me. He's prompting me to get better at them. And it's just, I think, important for all of us to remember no matter how long we've been writing, we can always get better.
Mm.
Okay. Just want to make sure you guys have questions answered before we close for today. Okay. I'll put the enrollment link in the chat room before we close today. And
Oh, I have a
yeah,
question. So if we sign up for this 8-week course and you said it's one time a week, like what day of the week and time is it?
so that's for the chat. And so we'll have our chat schedule figured out when you enroll. And it'll be a time that's good for everybody. We'll figure out a time that's good for everybody. Could be evening, it could be Saturday mornings, it could be Sundays, because we're just going to meet in the chat room. And the other part about that that's so great that we're going to use the chat room for the connection within the cohort is the messages stay there. So you can go back and read the chat.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, isn't it? I am
Yeah.
a little weary of going back and watching an archive sometimes. Sometimes I think, oh, I just want to read like the transcript. The chat room messages are like our transcript, so you can go back and read the chat. So even if you're like, this week I can't make the live chat, it does not matter. You just go back and scroll through and read the conversation.
Oh, okay.
So it's
Yep.
much more, I think it's much more convenient to do it that way.
Yeah, because I'm not sure if I'm going to Israel in May or not. Depends on the war to see my family. So, depending if I'm here, I don't mind if it's on a Saturday because obviously today is Saturday. I use the computer, but they do not. They're more observant than I am. And also, I don't know what would be because no matter when it happens, if the sirens go off, we go in the bomb shelter. So I'm not sure if I'm going in May or not. It depends. I mean, I had bought my ticket in January because it was supposed to be my granddaughter's bat mitzvah, and we're like, don't know what's happening. So I may not go. I just don't know. So if I don't sign up for the May cohort, when would you be doing this again?
Yeah, so we'll do May, June, and
Okay,
then we would probably start August or September.
August or September. Okay, great.
Yeah, I appreciate that we have things going on in our lives and we want this to feel like it's doable. And I have the flexibility to participate in the way I want. And so that's why I've set up that the tutorials are archived that you can watch. And then the chat rooms are just what you can join when you can and read, are basically conversation when you can't.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you.
And for those who are watching the archive, thanks for watching.
Is there a code that we're supposed to be getting?
Book. Book is your code.
Oh, book is the code?
Yeah, yeah, that's your code. Book for 20% off. Nice and easy.
Is that for either or only if you get the whole package?
It's for either.
All right.
I know it works for both. Isn't that nice? Yeah. When I was
Cool.
getting ready this morning, I thought, you know what? I see a coupon code in the future. Why not? Let's do it. So yeah, you get a coupon code. And really, it's a thank you for watching and being with me the entire time. So you've earned your coupon code.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, thanks everybody for watching too.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Denise.
much.
Bye, everybody.